The night was unusually quiet for Zahn, a rarity that YN appreciated. Sitting on their bed, they stared out at the flickering lights of the city outside. It had been a long day, and they were ready to unwind when a familiar noise startled them. The creak of their bedroom window. Before they could even think to react, Jinx swung inside with the grace of someone who'd done it 100 times before. She landed on her feet with a playful smirk, her electric blue hair swaying with their movements. "Surprise!" she whispered loudly, throwing her arms up as if expecting an applause. "Jinx!" YN hissed, rushing to close the window behind her. "What are you doing here? You know how risky this is?" she said between gritted teeth. Jinx shrugged, unbothered. "Ugh, risky schmisky, I missed you." Her words sent a flutter through YN's chest, but they kept their face stern. "I missed you too, but sneaking into my room like this, someone could have seen you." "Nah, I'm stealthy, like a shadow," Jinx began, darting around the room dramatically, imitating a ninja. She ended up her display by tumbling onto YN's bed, sprawling out with an exaggerated sigh. "You're impossible," YN muttered, though a small smile tugged at their lips as they watched their antics. Jinx propped herself up on her elbows, her mischievous grin softening into something gentler. "But you love me anyway," she teased, her voice quieter now. "Yeah, I do," YN sighed, cheeks warming up as they looked away. For a moment, silence fell between them, the weight of their secret relationship settling in the room. It had been months since they started sneaking around, stolen moments in the shadows of Zahn. Jinx was all wild and energy and chaos, a whirlwind of craziness, and that had somehow chosen them to be her calm amongst the storm. But while Jinx was open about her feelings, YN struggled with the idea of going public. Jinx sat up, tilting her head to the side. "You're thinking again? I can see it on your face." YN sighed, running a hand through her hair. I'm just not ready, Jinx. I know you hate keeping things a secret, but hey," Jinx interrupted, her tone surprisingly soft as she slid closer, her hands reaching out for theirs. "It's okay. I get it. I'm not, mad or anything. I just like being with you. You know, it doesn't matter if it's in front of everyone or just in here." YN looked at her, the sincerity in her eyes easing some of their guilt. "You really mean that?" "Yeah, of course I do. Besides," Jinx teased, leaning in, her lips brushing against the ear as she whispered, "secret relationships are kinda exciting, don't you think?" The teasing tilt in her voice made YN laugh despite themselves. "You're ridiculous." She began to shoot back, Jinx looking at them. "And you love it," Jinx shot, pulling back just enough to meet their gaze. Her eyes were vibrant and full of mischief. She searched theirs for a moment. "Can I kiss you? Or are you gonna keep worrying about the people watching us through the walls?" YN rolled their eyes, but they couldn't help suppress the smile that spread across their face. "No one's watching." "Good," Jinx murmured, her voice dropping to a near whisper. She leaned in close, closing the distance between them, her lips finding theirs in a kiss that was as electric as she was. YN melted in to the warmth of her touch, their worries temporarily forgotten. Her hands cupped their jawline, fingers tracing their face with a surprising amount of tenderness. Jinx kissed like she lived, wild and passionate and unapologetically herself. It wasn't long before YN's arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer. The world outside their small bubble ceased to exist, leaving only the sensation of Jinx's lips moving against theirs, her breath mingling with her own. Minutes passed, in a blur of heat and soft sighs when they finally pulled apart. Both of them were breathless, their foreheads resting together. Jinx's cheeks were flushed, a rare vulnerability flickering in her expression. "You're so cute when you're all flustered," she teased, though her voice was softer than usual. "You're one to talk," YN shot back, their own face warm. Jinx grinned, unrepented. "What can I say? You bring out the soft side in me." YN chuckled, their fingers brushing against her cheek. Thanks for being so understanding about this, about me not being ready, Lion slowly said, clearing the throat as they did. Hey, I told you it's not a big deal. Jinx leaned into their touch, her eyes closing briefly. As long as I get to have you all to myself like this sometimes, I'm all good. The words made Wyan's heart ache in the best way. They knew they were lucky to have someone like Jinx, someone who could balance out their chaos, but with a quiet patience when it came to them. Still, Wyan said after a moment, I'll try to get there, to be ready, I mean. Jinx's eyes lit up, but she didn't press any further. Whenever you are. No rush, but until then, she flopped back onto the bed dramatically, dragging Wyan down with her. We've got this secret thing down pretty good, don't you think? Wyan laughed as they landed beside her. Yeah, I think we do. They lay there together, tangled in each other's arms, for the rest of the night. It seemed to stretch on. For now, the world outside could wait. All that mattered was the warmth that they shared in the quiet and safety and secret. The quiet hum of Zaun's night was comforting. As Wyan rested against Jinx, the chaos of the day slowly dissolving with each shared breath. The moment was perfect. It was stolen and private, just the way they liked it. Jinx's arm wrapped around them, protectively, her blue hair spilling across the pillow like ribbons of rebellion. You're thinking again, Jinx murmured, her voice low, teasing as she brushed her thumb over Wyan's cheek. Her gaze was soft. Wyan sighed, their eyes flickering to the closed door. It's just, if my parents ever found out about us. Jinx rolled her eyes dramatically. They're not gonna find out. I was careful getting in here. Besides, she added with a cocky smirk, I am the master of stealth. Remember? Wyan gave her a skeptical look. You're quite literally the opposite of stealthy. Jinx laughed. Her voice was like a melody that they could never get tired of. Fair, but come on. When I want to be with you, and right now, she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, I really, really want to be with you. Heat rose to Wyan's cheeks as Jinx's lips brushed against theirs, soft at first, but deepening into something more. Her kisses were addictive, a perfect mix of sweetness and chaos. Wyan melted in, her hair tangling in Jinx's hands. The world was nothing but faded to chaos. The sound of the door creaking open shattered the moment like glass. What the hell is going on in here? Wyan froze, their heart plummeting into their stomach. Their parents stood at the doorway. Their expressions were a mix of shock and fury. Jinx pulled back, her usual confidence faltering for a split second before she was able to mask it with a cocky smirk. Hey there, she said, waving casually as if she didn't just get caught making out with their kid. Jinx, get out of my house right now. Wyan's mother snapped. Her voice was icy. And don't you dare come back. Wyan scrambled to their feet, panic flooding in their veins. Mom, Dad, wait. Don't you wait us. Their father barked, his face red with anger. He pointed to Jinx. This girl is trouble. She's dangerous, she's reckless. Right here, you know, Jinx murmured, her smirk returning as she crossed her arms. You don't have to talk about me like I'm invisible. Jinx, please, Wyan whispered, their hands trembling. Let me handle this. Handle what? Their mother cut in, her eyes blazing. How long has this been going on? Wyan, how long have you been sneaking around with her? It's none of your business, Wyan shot back, surprising even themselves with how sharp their tone was. You don't know her like I do. We know enough, their father shouted. She's a criminal, a menace to society, and you're sneaking her into our house? Unbelievable. Jinx's jaw tightened, but she didn't lash out. Instead, she just stepped closer to Wyan, her hands brushing against theirs. Wyan, I think I should, go. No, Wyan said firmly, their voice cracking slightly. They turned to their parents, their chest heaving in frustration. You don't get to decide who I care about, and Jinx is my... They hesitated for a second, searching for the right words. She's my girlfriend. The confession hung in the air like a thunderclap. Their mother's face twisted into disbelief. You can't be serious. I am, Wyan said, standing taller despite the lump forming in their throat. I love her. For a moment, the room was silent. Then their father scoffed, shaking his head. You don't know what you're saying. Love? With someone like her? She'll destroy you, Wyan. She'll drag you down with her chaos. Jinx flinched at the words, but quickly masked it with a grin. Wow, thanks for the vote of confidence, Mr. Wyan's dad. Don't, he snapped, his voice cutting. You don't get to joke about this. You have no place in this family, and you never will. Stop it, Wyan shouted, tears stinging their eyes. You don't know her like I do. You just see the worst parts of her, but you don't see what I see. She's kind, she cares about me, and Their mother began to interject. She's using you. Her tone was cold. People like her don't care about anybody but themselves. That's enough, Wyan yelled, their voice cracking. They turned to Jinx, who looked uncharacteristically subdued. You don't have to take this. Wyan, Jinx began, her voice softer than usual. No, Wyan insisted, grabbing her hand and lacing their fingers together. I'm not letting them talk to you about this. Jinx squeezed their hand, their eyes searching for reassurance. For once, it seemed like Jinx was unsure of herself, the usual bravo crumbling under the weight of the confrontation. You don't belong with her, their father said. His voice was quieter now, but no less firm. You're better than this, Wyan. Wyan stared at her parents, their heart breaking. I thought you'd understand, or you at least would try, but I guess I was wrong. Their mother's expression softened for a moment, but her resolve quickly returned. We just want what's best for you, and this is not it. Wyan cut them off. Jinx is what's best for me, Wyan said, quietly, their voice steady. Even if you can't see it, this is what I want. Finally, the room fell silent again. The tension was thick in the air. But Jinx spoke, her voice hesitant. I should go. No, Wyan said firmly, but Jinx shook her head. It's okay. I'll. She tried to talk, but her smirk returned. But it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'll see you later. Yeah? Before Wyan could even argue, Jinx leaned in, pressing a quick kiss to their forehead. Stay out some hot stuff. With that, she turned and climbed out the window, disappearing into the night as quickly as she had come. Wyan turned back to their parents, their chest heaving with emotion. You don't get to decide who I love. I'll see her again whether you want it or not. The parents didn't respond, their expressions a mix of anger and hurt. Wyan didn't care. Jinx was worth fighting for, and they'd fight for as long as it took. As the night stretched on, Wyan lay awake, their thoughts consumed by Jinx. Whatever came next, they just didn't know what they were going to do. But after Jinx had slipped out of the window, Wyan stood there, trembling. The room felt colder without her chaotic energy. The weight of Wyan's parents' disapproval pressed down hard. Their father ran a hand through his hair, pacing while their mother crossed their arms. Her expression was unreadable. Wyan, their mother said after a long silence, her tone gentle. We're not trying to hurt you. We're worried Jinx isn't safe for you. She's not what you think she is, they murmured. Their voice was raw. I know she's done bad things, but she's trying, and she's trying for me. That's enough, their father snapped, turning to face them. You can't build a future on someone who's trying. What happens when she pulls you into her mess? What happens when her chaos becomes your chaos? It already is, Ryan shouted, their voice cracking. But I don't care. I love her and I'm not going to abandon her just because you think she's a lost cause. Their mother sighed heavily, her shoulders slumping. You're too young to understand. Especially to understand what love is. And what love can cost. No, I'm not, Ryan said firmly, wiping a stray tear. I know exactly what it costs and I'm willing to pay for it because it's worth it. Their father opened their mouth to argue once more, but Ryan raised a hand. If you can't accept this, fine, but you don't get to make me feel ashamed for loving her. The room fell silent. Ryan's parents exchanged glances, their stern facades cracking just slightly. I'm going to bed, she said quietly. They closed the door. But they whispered to themselves, she's worth it. And they knew she was, because Jinx was always in every single cinematic universe available, worth it.